Welcome back, everybody. Just before the break, we were talking about the importance of intersectionality, recognizing that our communities and our societies are not homogenous, they're heterogeneous. And we're going to pick up a little bit on that in this new panel, where we're going to explore active aging and intergenerational cooperation in education. So I'm delighted to introduce some of the members of our panel who will help us to explore this and understand how this applies to the world of adult education and to the digital environment. Joining me on my panel, I have Philippe Seidel Leroy, a Policy and European Parliament Liaison Officer at Age Platform Europe. I have Dina, the professor at Coimbra Higher Educational School, the Polytechnic Institute of Coimbra, and a board member of the European Association for the Education of Adults. I have Dagmar Hirche, a German entrepreneur and founder of the NGO Wege aus der Einsamkei. I apologize if I've not pronounced that very well. And also Iveta Cirule, the founder and coordinator of the Senior University in Latvia. Welcome to all of you. So let's start by the fact that often the approach to adult education tends to be a bit utilitarian, that the purpose of adult education is for employability. And that means for policymakers, their return on investment calculations are very different for older adults. And this means that perhaps there might be less focus and less attention to that. And we aren't seeing older people as a heterogeneous group who are both educators and learners. Now, the last 18 months have taught us the power of collaboration. And with the big societal challenges we have ahead of us, and we've talked about that for the last 2 days, decarbonising our economy, tackling climate change, re-establishing peace and security, we need a whole of society response to some of these big things. And that means we need to be able to tap into the brains and experience of older generations, who also might have more time to go in depth and find new angles to a problem. Now, we recognise that for former heads of state, former prime ministers who often get named to lead big panels on behalf of the UN, etc. But somehow we don't see the rest of the older population in that same way, with useful expertise or insight, but therefore not also limited by their needs for career progression, so they have so much to contribute. Philippe, let me bring you in as someone representing the platform for older people. Why don't we see older people in that same way as having a contribution, expertise, and opportunity to contribute? And does that affect the way that the adult learning environment is set up?
It's first of all, it's something very natural, actually, that we tend to focus our attention only on the high achievers, on those who have done something remarkable. This is true at any age, at any gender, at any group that we look at. But it is particularly true with older persons, as you mentioned. There are a lot of older persons who are, for example, successful founders of startups, but we don't see them because they're not as spectacular and innovative and groundbreaking as some of the startups that tend to be like garage to multinational company type startups. They tend to keep small, for instance. There are a lot of older persons who contribute. There's, for example, in more surprising ways, in Germany, there's a group called the Grannies Against the Far Right, and they every week stage protests against anti-Semitism or against other threats from the far right. In Belgium, there's the Grandparents for Climate, who take part in every single climate demonstration taking part here. A lot of older persons are crucial to the functioning of large NGOs such as Amnesty International or the Red Cross. They wouldn't be able to function without those volunteers who are part of that. But we tend not to see that, of course. That of course not, but that's what you said. So ultimately, it shows that we are actually all subject to ageism in a certain way. We tend to sketch out only those achievements that are sometimes the achievements that are remunerated in terms of money. So we tend to look only at people who actually gain their living with what they do. And it's part of the general theme of making older persons more invisible. We take or make them invisible. We tend to sketch them out only to have positive or negative headlines. And if we do, often we highlight them in a collective manner, talking about the elderly, for example, but not about older persons and a particular older person, except this older person, if this older person has done something really remarkable, and this then stands out. Yeah. So it is essentially the way we see old age. Maybe old age speaks also to our fears, because a lot of us do not want to age, do not want to be confronted with our own future, because we tend to associate old age with fragility, with disability and things like that, which of course is part of the experience of aging, but it's not only part of that. And so we need to highlight that more, and to raise awareness for this ageism, because we know that ageism hurts us, hurts ourselves, hurts others. It is negative for our health, it's negative for our income, it's negative for our economy, it's negative for our life expectancy. But it is something that we all need to be more aware of.
Thank you. And again, you're making the link to the topic we had yesterday and early this morning about fear, and how fear limits what you see, limits therefore your ability to make decisions that are effective in a broader context. And as you say, people tend to fear getting older because of the implications of loss of control, loss of relevance, loss of power, loss of strength, etc. So maybe it's this fear that is making older generations being seen just through this box, this lens of being the elderly. Let me bring in Dagmar at this point, because public authorities have been looking to find ways to save money for years. And one obvious answer is to put public services online. It's a fantastic cost reduction. So their approach to offering digital skills for older people tends to be focused on how to give people the minimum skills they need in order to interact with these public services. And that's great. It's important for equality. But what that doesn't do is provide a full range of skills for older people for a range of things they might want to do, from, yes, being able to fill out a form, a government form, but advanced coding skills, online selling skills. From your perspective, in your NGO, you advocate for older people's active participation in the digital world. Can you give me a sense of what active participation actually means, and how do we increase the ambition of the offerings that we have for older people on digital skills?
Yes, sure. Because I say hello from Berlin, and I'm sitting here with 50 people between 72 and 87 who want to learn how to use a smartphone. And they came every week, and we say it's extremely important to explain to people over 65 that lifelong learning is an absolutely necessary in our area in this time. Because our world become more and more digital, and we lost a lot of people over 70, 80 or 90 years old. We see it in Germany. If you see the statistics, only 30% of the people over 80 years are old. They are onliner. So 70% of these people are offliner, and we have to find ways to take them with us in this digital world. And we say without participation, one exclusion oneself. In contrast, civil association, companies and politics must offer free digital training courses, because why should older people pay for something what they don't want to learn, but what they have to learn, because the world say everything is digital and we have no idea how to take people over 70 into this digital world. I think this is very important. The education of us must be tailored to the target groups, to these special groups. And we have found out that we train with fun fun is a very, very important thing for elderly people to go with us in this digital world. Without fun, you will not be successful. This is our experience we make. So far, we have welcomed over 14,000 elderly people between 75 and 95 years old. We take them with us in the digital world before Corona was coming analog, and now we make it by digital or both, digital and analog together. And we found out we have so many fun when we dance with them over Zoom. The dancing is interesting, but how to use Zoom? They learn how to use digital devices. And I think we have to show this people that it can make a lot of fun. And when they see the fun, they found out it can be helpful for their own life, to be in their own rooms, not to go in a care home. So a lot of things and a lot of startups have to think how they reach people over 65 with a digital device. I think this is very, very important.
Thank you. And I love the fact that we should bring fun back into our adult learning and our environment. Let me bring in Dina at this point, because you're another person who features on our community stories on the EPALE website, and we encourage people to go and have a look and be inspired by the different stories. But you talk about a program you've led in particularly in rural areas. And this is a specific challenge for some European countries, which are seeing small villages die out as young people leave to go to the city to find work, and then older people leave when there's no longer the services that they rely on available in the rural areas. So what do you think are the main challenges in rural areas? I mean, the obvious ones might be connectivity, but there's the fun aspect that Dagmar spoke about, the social aspect. How did you overcome some of these challenges? And do you think that adult education could revitalize some of these rural areas where people are leaving them because they don't see opportunity?
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm delighted to be here and to very happy and grateful to have the opportunity to discuss this issue and participate. Thank you very much. I believe with all my heart that rural areas are fun. They are close to nature. They are close to traditions. So beginning with a positive note about the rural areas, we have lots of challenges, of course. And some of the challenges are related to isolation, desertification. So we need to provide access to everyone by reaching even the most isolated population. Of course, we have some problems related low literacy levels that constitutes obviously a barrier towards participation of people, and bad internet connection, as you said earlier. So digital learning is not a useful answer for some of our learners. The difference of the rural areas and the urban areas are related also to the needs of the people, are related to the conditions in which learning takes place, and they differ, and also the reasons for participation. We have some important barriers related to the opportunities and the programs, like the definition of a minimum number of participants to open an opportunity for learning. We have to have a group, but if we have so few people living in different areas, isolated areas, are they worth it? Yes, I believe if we have one person, that is worth it. We have to go where no one goes, go where people are. So we have some problems related to flexibility, some conditions like transportation, and of course, free participation without costs for people. Because we are talking about mostly a population without many financial resources. Another huge challenge for us is to fight the discredit of the value of investment in education for and with older people in isolation context. So that struggle is very important for us to value the richness of the educational potential for adult learners and for communities. There is some educational offers, very creative, some interesting examples like mobile libraries on wheels that go and visit the older people in the villages. But we have not so many offers in isolation locations with low population density. The educational services are pretty much concentrated in cities, and there is no decentralized or itinerant offers to that population that is isolated. We have now seen some efforts towards aging in place. So, and pushed by the pandemic, it has increased the personalized learning services at home along with care services. So there is a trying to integrate actions of the educational and the social areas. We are not there, I believe, but there is some progress replacing the assistance perspective with an empowering and humanistic perspective, focus on potentialities, not just on needs, on fragilities, but on potentialities of the people and of the communities. And of course, with commitment to autonomy of the older people. So I believe participation of the older people in the design of policies and programs that have impact on their lives, it's very important. By strategies of active listening, participatory approaches that not only values the voice, but the decision of the people. So nothing for the elderly without the elderly, nothing for old people without old people. So make potential learners and older learners part of the whole process of designing, development, and of course, evaluation. And older people, I believe, are really agents of their own education, of their own change and transformation of the communities and of society and of the world. So there are some values that we cherish, like proximity, engagement, and of course, friendship. I believe affection is very important, fun and love. We need more love to work with people, promoting community-based action, supporting communities' self-organization with a commitment, with real investment on people, not numbers, people that live wherever they are, in a right-based view, in a supporting the idea of learning and education as an end in itself. So for me, it's very important that the municipalities are very important in this concern. They have a huge role to guarantee free participation, transformation, other conditions that we need to work on. We also have to create synergies, collaborating with people who are closer to the reality, support local partners, associations, social institutions that already work in the rural areas to sustain and expand their services beyond care offers, linking the social services to the educational ones in an integrated approach. So recognizing also the value of non-formal adult education, of community education, the value for citizens, for communities, with proper, adequate funding.
Excellent, thank you. And I'm sure funding is going to be a key theme for all speakers as we go forward. Let me now bring in Iveta, because we heard from Dina the value of education and the importance of involving older people in developing the curriculum and helping to set the framework for it. Now, you established a senior university in Latvia. Can you tell us about that? How did it start and what were the challenges and what does it now deliver?
Okay, good morning, good afternoon, and greetings from Latvia. So I'm very grateful, as all participants here, to be on this panel and to share Latvia experience. So first of all, I want to say congratulations to everyone present here. Each day we become 1 day older, okay? And nowadays we speak not only about third age education, about fourth age, we even are focusing on the fifth age, which is like extremely maybe old people close to 100 years old, okay? So I represent Latvia. We are just 2 million people population. We are green, we are creative, we are open-minded. Our advantage is excellent internet connection. We are pioneers globally in the 5G technology. And this is giving us some priorities. 1/3 of the population out of 2 million are people, we say, starting third age, 55, 60 plus. And so far in Latvia, we have no social initiative, no educational movement tailored for the third age, fourth age, fifth age adult learners. And I was inspired in 2016-17 in the framework of one European project, DIAL, Digital Competencies for Seniors, by experience coming from Portugal, from the global network Rutish, originated 2005. And I thought, okay, maybe I can start the same in Latvia. So we launched some groups here in Latvia. We are following a global network learning content building blocks. We have training on digital competencies, training on healthy and active lifestyle, training on personal development, including entrepreneurial competencies, financial competencies, environmental attitudes, and finally also languages. We are training our seniors basic English and also advanced English. And just looking at the Latvia case, what I want to say, people are willing to learn. We have a lot of senior learners. They say, please organize a group. And here I can agree with Dina's statement so far. To launch the group, even online, we need a certain amount of people. Okay, so in Latvia, we fixed this as around minimum 15, maximum 25 people. We are now in Zoom. We are using Zoom as a teaching training platform. And this was a bit of challenge to connect each of our learners doing this pilot testing in Latvia. I invested starting 20 minutes per person, and maximum was 1 hour, 27 minutes to train person to get into Zoom. And this is a huge success for us as a country, because so far no initiatives at all doing this blended learning, on-site, online, or just online learning. So I do believe this pandemic period is bringing us like huge opportunities. And in 2019, when I started in Latvia this movement, I could never imagine that we will move in a 1 year time to the Zoom. It was like dream impossible. So basically that's all by me. And just to add, we even launched sport club activities online. We do this Monday mornings, Friday mornings, and all people connected to the senior university network here in Latvia, they have unique rights to do these sport activities, and they are very happy also to do activities online. That's all by me.
Thank you, Iveta. Let me come back to Philippe for a moment, but with your perspective of the age platform across Europe. Digital learning has, I think, one very interesting aspect in the sense that it can lower the threshold to access things. So if you think about an ordinary classroom, it might be held in a building on the 3rd floor without a lift. So there might be huge accessibility challenges for older people who may not be able to walk so far, who can't climb stairs. But digital takes all of that away. Once, as Iveta said, they've had the training and being able to use it. Our focus to yesterday and today is adult learning. Philippe, do you see digital tools as, the sort of secret power that would allow adult learning to reach more older people and to give them more opportunity? Or is it something that just creates more barriers? Because, as you say, you've got to address the new technology, you've got to learn how to use it, how to update it. Where does the balance lie in your perspective?
Well, I would say I wouldn't strike the balance. It's both at the time, both at once. So as you say, as also Dina pointed out, especially in rural areas, there are simply no sufficient offers for adult learning that are tailored to older persons. So those are areas which are very difficult to reach. And you rightly say that there's a huge potential to develop learning via online tools, especially there. But on the other hand, there's a lot of people who are unable to access this, and even unable to access the training which is needed to get access. Because even for this, you will need equipment which is expensive. You will need an internet connection. There's not a lot of rural areas in the EU which are connected to broadband or 4G. I mean, Latvia is a good example here, but this is not the case everywhere. So equipment is expensive. It needs to be up to date. Connections need to be there. You have to pay your connections. So there's a lot of very concrete barriers, which are not necessarily related to skills. And then you also have the skills barrier, which is there because, those who are now in retirement are usually those who didn't have to work a lot with digital technologies during their working years, so they didn't have to develop the skills. So actually developing the skills becomes something very voluntary in this sense. And I like a lot something that Dina said and Dagmar before, that learning needs to be fun. And this is especially true for older persons, because when you're no longer active in the labor market, you're not learning to get money or to make more money. You're learning only because of the pure benefit of learning, which is having some interesting exchanges with peers. Meeting peers, physically meeting peers, is also something which is a strong motivation to engage in learning, which obviously you don't have that much if it's only digital. And so you need to put an extra effort in making it fun and underlining also these aspects, which are not only related to the content that you learn, but also to the exchange. And yeah, so this is an extra challenge. It can also be a hook to bring people into learning about digital skills, because you can show them, well, you can access these interactions with the tools that we're going to show you. But the tools are just tools. And this is maybe more true for older persons than for many others who are already using these tools.
Thank you, Philippe. And I must apologise on behalf of one of our panelists, Dagmar. She's had to leave the call at the moment because there's an electricity problem where she is, but hopefully she'll be able to come back and join us. Let me bring in Sarah, because she's been watching the online comments and chats to see, is the audience inspired by what we're talking about? Any comments or questions for our panelists?
Yeah, actually, we have someone congratulating and thanking the panelists for their insights, and we have a specific question about, let's say, a stereotype within the stereotype, or stereotypes within the stereotypes, which is about gender. So, I would like to know your comments and ideas about gender stereotypes and gender roles. How do they come into the pictures? So,
thank you for that. And any member of the panel might like to pick up on that. And just, for context, if you look at life expectancy, women have a longer life expectancies than men. So amongst the older population, there will be more women represented. So the issue of gender stereotypes, I think, has a particular relevance for the older communities. Dina, I see you nodding a little bit. Would you like to kick us off how you see the gender aspects in the way you work?
Yes, thank you. I agree, because it is very important to discuss it. Lots of the caregivers are women, and most of them are elderly women. So taking care of elderly people. So there is some work to do, lots of work to do, to give conditions, training, support to that people. They are not just informal carers, but also in contexts, in institutional contexts, they are mostly caregivers are women. So we need to address that and to facilitate their conditions to work, to support them, and to train them. And also we have some concerns about other kinds of issues related to violence towards women, towards older women. We have domestic violence, financial violence. So we have not, of course, not everything is negative, but I want to highlight what we necessarily have to act upon, and to engage in working to facilitate the overload burden of some of the women that are caregivers.
Thank you. Iveta, would you like to come in and on this one as well, particularly how you address gender aspects within your senior university?
Yeah, and this is correct. Life expectancy is attacking men and women differently. Okay, we have the same, let's say, real life situation here in Latvia. Is the older our population, the less men, and majority are women. Okay. And what I would like maybe to point out here, maybe interesting from the Latvia Senior University previous two academic year sessions, I was not so concerned about gender issue at all. But one day, ladies asked me, maybe I can bring in more teachers, trainers, men. And this was really a surprise for me. And I said, okay, we will try. And today we are having excellent teacher, digital competencies teacher. He is teacher himself. He is 30, maybe 5 years young. And this is the only teacher that have no objection by senior lovely ladies when he is delivering a teaching. Okay. And I ask, ladies, how it come? And they said, he is man and we like him. And this is maybe a fun moment here, but you see, I have never thought about gender issues regarding adult educators. Okay, I knew that majority, because I know my adult learner profile, 98% at this stage piloting the senior university social initiative model here in Latvia are ladies. And we have only some men, and men due to the life expectancy. And secondly, it's just the culture in Latvia that ladies are more active than men. Okay, fortunately or unfortunately. And I was a little bit surprised when I was asked to bring in more teacher manpower regarding the gender balance. So, so I would say that this is not maybe a serious issue at this stage, but this gender balance is for sure linked also with opportunities for elderly people to learn. And I think this is the main challenge for us, that we have people here, but we have no services for them, free of charge, for symbolic payment, for whatever even payment. All educational services are cut for students, for youth, for children, and elderly are out of the education market for long life education in general. That's all by me.
Thank you. Sarah, do we have another question from our audience?
Yeah. Yeah, sorry, I couldn't unmute myself. Yes, we have another question that actually touched upon an issue that hasn't come really into the discourse, so maybe it's good to address it. It's about intergenerational learning. So it's a very simple question. Can someone talk about intergenerational learning and its chances to help both sides?
Philippe, I think maybe this is going to land on your desk.
Yes, well, we really like intergenerational learning, because I was talking about this motivational aspect. It is, as Iveta just pointed out, it is also a huge incentive for older persons to interact with younger persons, and this is also an incentive for learning. Of course, older persons can learn a lot from younger persons in terms of digital skills, etc. It's also the other way around. It's often highlighted in the workplace, actually, where intergenerational teams are more effective, because older persons have so much experience that they, and maybe a different view on things that they can share with their younger colleagues, and so that every sort of skill set and experience set is bringing out the best out of the team, and the same is true in outside of the labor market, of course. I mean, there's plenty of crafts that only older persons know and can transmit. There's plenty of experience of history. I read yesterday that the last member of the French resistance against the Nazis passed away yesterday, or the last couple of days. So it shows that how much weight is actually on the shoulders of older persons, and how much untold stories there are to be passed on. I also want to come back to this gender discussion very briefly. It's maybe linked to that. Actually, women are very active in the intergenerational sphere, as you talked about caregiving, etc. And I myself had an unconscious bias when I was talking about the achievements of older persons, and I left out the care aspect. If all older women would stop caring for other older persons or their grandchildren, we would have a huge economic problem. And this is something which is not shown, which is not necessarily brought forward, but which is part of a lot of our individual experiences when we think about how we were with our grandparents, grandmothers, or mothers, but depending on our age and their age, and how we interact with older persons. Actually, I heard yesterday that there's a lot of very good experiences in Sweden, probably also elsewhere, where older persons from residential care or other care facilities are brought into daycare centers for children to read stories, just to interact and to come regularly. And it is a way to already change stereotypes about older age, because in our mobile world, children do not live necessarily next to their grandparents, and so they have no experience about what actually an older person is, although we start acquiring age stereotypes at a young age. So it is very beneficial for them, because they see older persons as people where they have positive experiences with, and which are active, which are doing things that are different than their own parents do. And it's, of course, very beneficial to the older persons themselves, because it gives them a sense of purpose. It gives them a sense of community. Everyone likes to be around children, or almost everyone, I would say. So it also gives them, it improves their mental health, and then by extension also their physical health. So there's a lot of potential for that.
Okay. Thank you, Philippe. I'm about to close the panel, but I have another minute and a half left. And Iveta, I know that you wanted to contribute something, so please go ahead.
Yeah, and this will be really fast. Just to contribute on the intergenerational learning, next year we are launching the platform with the title Senior University Latvia. So whenever you are seated, you can join it. Okay, and finally, we also launch under Senior University umbrella also the initiative Intergenerational Business Incubator. My major education and also research is linked with business incubation and entrepreneurial competencies, and we already have some teams with younger and elderly, and mostly they will try to commercialize creative skills, some cultural heritage related activities, also healthy cooking, and we will see how this will work out. We will have this at the beginning of year online mode, but we are really launching this in the premises of one public university business incubator, and this will be a special program with the title Intergenerational Incubator. So that's all by me.
Thanks, Iveta. And if you give us the information, we can put it in the chat, the link to the website, so people can join it. I'm going to bring this panel to a close. Say a very warm thank you to Philippe, to Dina, to Iveta and Dagmar, who was with us at the beginning. We picked up on this issue of intergenerational solidarity and the nature of how adults learning could provide opportunity, but also challenges for the older generation. So thank you very much for helping us to think through this, particularly touching on digital aspects. Thank you all.